Lucy Minturn and Liz Kloster of FosterWorks job shop out of the city of Chicago.
I left my banking job because I was about done with it and really wanted to get involved in making something.
They kind of exemplify the can-do small business startup mindset. Neither one of us have a background in running a fab shop. Okay, we can do this.
We've been on this journey. We looked at a number of businesses in the Chicagoland area. Now we're FosterWorks and humming away.
I'm a person who gets bored very easily. The number one plus of FosterWorks in my life is I have not been bored.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by Landtech Systems, developers of Landtech Expert, the most advanced CAD/CAM software for sheet metal cutting. Whether you're using laser, plasma, oxy-fuel, or water jet machines, Landtech Expert optimizes every cut with industry-leading nesting algorithms. Seamlessly compatible with top machine brands, Landtech Expert maximizes material usage and automates CNC programming for faster, smarter production. Ready to enhance your cutting performance? Visit landtech.com to explore the future of sheet metal fabrication. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I am Dan Davis of the Fabricator Magazine. This to my right is Lincoln Bruner.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us again, Lincoln.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Today's episode, we have Lucy Minturn and Liz Kloster of FosterWorks job shop out of the city of Chicago, near Half Acre Brewery, if you're into those type of geographic locations.
Using those as a landmark.
Yeah. We had we're gonna have a great conversation with them about their shop, how they got involved, and some of the things that they're really proud to have accomplished just in a short time in business.
They kind of exemplify the can-do, like, small business startup mindset. I mean, it's like, well, hey, neither one of us have a background in running a fab shop. Okay, we can do this.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's kind of interesting to consider their backgrounds, but yeah, when you start listening to the conversation, you understand that they're kind of striving for the same type of environment that makes a lot of shops successful.
Yeah, and they've got that sort of macro view of the neighborhood and providing middle-class jobs and the whole deal. The way they're thinking about it at both levels, kind of higher up and, hey, this is what we do to meet customer needs at the fabrication level. It's clear they're both very sharp. They're both very with it, and they understand business. It's a good conversation.
Yeah, I believe they said that they employed someone from Chicago Women in the Trades.
Yeah.
Which people might know from certain podcast episodes of the Fabricator Podcast.
Yes.
They might.
Or at least one episode. Be sure and stay tuned for this episode with Liz and Lucy from FosterWorks, sponsored by Landtech. We appreciate their sponsorship of this discussion, and we think you'll enjoy this episode. Thanks.
This episode of the Fabricator Podcast is brought to you by Landtech Systems, developers of Landtech Expert, the most advanced CAD/CAM software for sheet metal cutting. Whether you're using laser, plasma, oxy-fuel, or water jet machines, Landtech Expert optimizes every cut with industry-leading nesting algorithms. Seamlessly compatible with top machine brands, Landtech Expert maximizes material usage and automates CNC programming for faster, smarter production. Ready to enhance your cutting performance? Visit landtech.com to explore the future of sheet metal fabrication. Manufacturing and metalworking professionals across Canada, get ready. Don't miss the chance to connect with industry leaders, explore cutting-edge innovations, and gain insights to grow your business. This spring, the Metalworking and Manufacturing Expos are coming to 3 different cities across Canada. Check out the website for upcoming dates and locations. Register now at metalworkingexpo.com. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back to the Fabricator Podcast. Got a great episode for you today, and thanks to Landtech for sponsoring this episode. We have Liz Kloster and Lucy Minturn of FosterWorks from the city of Chicago. We're gonna have a nice conversation with them. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks
and
for having
co-host
us.
Lincoln Bruner.
Hey, good to be back.
Yeah, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting conversation because we haven't had too many guests who are, I don't want to call it startups, but relatively new in terms of business to the manufacturing space, and particularly in terms of a job shop, maybe some smaller 1 to 5 person shops. So, Lucy, can you describe how you ended up in metal fabricating and the different paths you've taken? Because you both have very interesting backgrounds.
Well, this is Lucy, and thanks so much for having us, and thanks to Land Tech as well for inviting us to do this spot. We really were here because I dragged Liz into this kicking and screaming. I have a varied background, but back in New York City, where I lived for about 15 years post college, I left my banking job because I was about done with it and really wanted to get involved in making something. I had a particular interest in welding. I had taken some welding classes in New York City at the Lower East Side Settlement House, kind of annex. And I really thought that I wanted to go work in the metal fabricating business. I had read a fabulous article in the one of the design editions of the New York Times Magazine about a gentleman who owned a family business in Queens. And it was about the history of that shop and what they were still currently doing, which was a lot of architectural, custom architectural fabrication, both for residential and commercial work, but also they did a lot of really high-end furniture manufacture and did work for artists and sculptors. So I went and talked to him for 2.5 hours, and he said, "Would you like a job?" And I said, "You bet I'd like a job." So I went to work for him, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So fast forward to 3 years ago, Liz and I had worked together doing some administrative work for a private Montessori school. And she was the CFO and I was the COO at that joint. And I had hired her, and we worked really well together and enjoyed each other. I left, was looking around for something else to do, and really realized that I wanted to do this again, and that I was in the heart of manufacturing in Chicago, and there must be a family business that somebody didn't want anymore. So I started looking around, and Liz, made the silly choice of having lunch with me a particular day, and I said, "So I'm
I
thinking."
caught her on a very bad day.
For you.
Bad for me.
Yeah,
Good
bad
her.
for you, good for me. Right. And lucky for me, when I said, "Do you think I should do this?" I said, "Yeah." She said yes. And then I said, "Well, will you do it with me?" She also said yes.
Must have been a good lunch.
It was more like a sure, why not?
Oh, was it that?
It was like
Okay,
that.
yeah. So a decision
result.
she probably rues to this day, but maybe in a year or two she won't. Anyway, she's been such a good sport, and we've been on this journey. We looked at a number of businesses in the Chicagoland area, from a custom mattress fabricating company, to a heat treating company, to a very similar sheet metal shop that we actually really wanted to buy, but they took it off the market. And then finally to the company that we bought, Marco Lighting Components. And now we're FosterWorks and happily ensconced in Bowmanville, in about an 18,000 foot facility, and humming away.
And your background was on the accounting side of things, correct?
Yeah, I am an accountant. I'm like a one-trick pony. I do numbers, and it is everything that I have now done in FosterWorks is entirely new to me. In my wildest dreams, I never thought I would be talking about like thicknesses and gauges of metal and
K factors.
And yeah, yes, and bend allowances and tolerances and uh, anything like this. But it's been really fun. It's really, accounting is one of those fields that is very important, but basically it's like you're putting numbers on a sheet for people who know numbers, and like most people don't care.
How does this differ from engineering?
Well, I definitely don't do any engineering, but like when you make something, you're making something, and it's a very different it's just a very different like headspace, workspace, field, all of it. And so um I'm a person who gets bored very easily, and so I think the number one plus of FosterWorks in my life is I have not been bored.
Right. Has it
Doesn't-
changed the way you think about accounting? Because that's been one of the conversations we've had with shop owners in terms of how they should go about costing things. And, you know, on paper, it might help, for example, to have some inventory on hand to help out a customer, but yet that inventory is going to be looked upon as a negative by somebody who's just looking at the numbers. You know, I don't know if your shop's to that point, but have things arisen since you've been involved with metal fabricating to make you question whether you should approach it in perhaps a different manner?
I mean, certainly working in the shop has affected a lot of how I think about like running a business. So my accounting work is primarily in the nonprofit space, which itself is like an entirely different beast. And so I'd have to think about that.
Yeah,
I'd
well,
have to
I'm
think.
not asking any more accounting questions, so you don't have to worry about it.
Nobody likes to talk about accounting, even the accountants.
I had to drop it in college, so go ahead. Like,
I'm curious about the name FosterWorks. Why FosterWorks, and what does that mean to you?
You know, Lucy and I are very sort of mission-oriented, mission-driven people, I think, just in our lives. And one of the things that resonated with us about this name in particular is that part of what we want to do is be good employers for, middle-class jobs, manufacturing jobs in the city of Chicago.
Hence your mission
part of
statement,
our mission. Yes.
Yeah.
And so we're very conscious of that. Of course, we'd like it to be profitable and be a nice business and support our families and all of that. But, a given, kind of put those sort of basic things aside, how we show up as employers and as members of our community is very important to us. And so we like this idea that we're like trying to foster the business and foster the workforce in the way that we show up to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
If that makes sense to
I'm
I
curious.
thought there was a connection to Foster Beach, so
No,
I'm a little more literal.
and that. No,
Okay.
so then that's part of it too.
Yeah, so I happened to grow up way up in upstate New York on Ivory Foster Road, which Ivory Foster was the farmer who owned this huge tract of land, and so it was his road. For a brief time between New York City and Chicago, I lived in Foster, Rhode Island.
Oh, wow.
And when I moved to Chicago, like totally out of nowhere, like I wound up living near Foster Avenue.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
And
I think that's where the original sort of spark of the
Yeah.
idea came from, was all these connections Lucy had. But then we were like, oh, that actually really fits into our ethos and what we, hope to do and are trying to do. And
It's a great neighborhood. It's having had my car towed there.
Oh, that's right across the
across the
street.
street
What a
from us.
positive
If
experience.
you're making bad parking decisions in Evanston, your car ends up in that neighborhood. But
That's
there's,
true.
There's like a history of manufacturing in that area. as
Yeah, we're
well.
right next to Temple Steel.
Right.
The business we purchased was located more in the
Just at
not
the north
Westwood.
part of the Kinsey Industrial Corridor.
What's nice about where we are now is that with Temple Steel there, and they're not really able to go anywhere. They're just so huge, and it would be
Right.
such a massive undertaking. It sort of protects the roads for the trucks that we need to come in and out, which is no small consideration in the city.
No.
And so it's a good location for us personally, but then also because these trucking routes essentially get maintained by Temple Steel.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
For
So,
you.
Yeah.
for us, yeah.
Can you give us an overview of currently how the business is set up in terms of capabilities and perhaps number of people who work for you?
Sure. So we have about 18,000 square feet in our current location. We have a laser, two CNC turret punches, two strippets, about 8 forming machines, drilling, tapping, hardware insertion, light welding, not heavy welding, roll forming.
Oh, wow.
So we're pretty kind of soup to nuts shop in terms of sheet metal production. We have a total of 8 employees, including us at the moment. So about 6 people working on the shop floor. And we've just recently hired one part-time salesperson as well. That's kind of
Nice.
like a big deal. We finally got to do that. So we run one shift at the moment, easily have the capacity in our current location to add another shift and add a considerable amount of, we have plenty of capacity to make more. We do primarily at the moment lighting components. That's what we inherited when we bought the business.
Right.
And there's a lot of work to do in that field, but we definitely have been making a concerted effort to diversify away from just the lighting industry. So we're working in oil and gas, food service. What else do we have? So the lighting that we have done historically has been mostly kind of commercial industrial stuff. We're also working now with military lighting, a couple of military lighting companies. So we're really trying to diversify away from, just have a broader range of industries that we service.
What's the range of materials you're working with?
Generally on the thin side, so
Yeah.
up to kind of 14, 12 gauge if we have to, but
Aluminum, like steel?
so yeah, everything: aluminum, steel, stainless, brass, galvanized, zinc, pre-finished, all of those
As you look
materials.
for other markets to serve, as you look for other customer bases, what are some considerations for a business of your size? Not exactly a startup, but close. What are you looking at? How does that affect what markets you go after?
Well, we're a little bit more less disciplined than that at the moment.
Yeah.
Because we find that our marketing is really best, by word of mouth and referral.
Sure.
It's not easy to just kind of like blitz a whole bunch of people, and it's not effective. We've found to blitz kind of some, level of company at a marketing campaign. So that's why we hired a salesperson instead of kind of doing marketing campaigns. But also we've found a number of, and one particular new client from Massachusetts through the MEP network. So through IMEC, and we actually from Mass MEC, they sent out something from a client of theirs to the national MEP network, and our local IMEC connected us to this opportunity. We've been prototyping with them for almost a year, and they're about ready to go into production.
Nice.
It's a new to market residential water heater.
Oh, wow. That's
That's
exciting.
quite interesting.
Yeah.
Like old school style or more of the like tankless type?
It's not tankless, but the other things they're doing, kind of wirelessly keying it into weather changes.
Oh, wow.
So
So
that
on,
it can-
on demand type of
Yeah,
thing?
so it's somewhat on demand. It uses some of that technology and then other new technologies to make for a really interesting residential water heater.
And you're on the ground floor.
And we're on the ground floor with them. So for them, too, one of the other things that we very much foster is a little ecosystem of other fabricators whom we work closely with. So spinning, stamping, and
Oh, wow.
and machining. We have 3 really good partners whom we collaborate with. Both, we supply them parts that need to be laser cut and/or formed. They supply us with spun parts, stamped parts, machined parts that we need to fulfill the complete package that our clients are looking for.
And just for the
So-
audience, the MEP's Manufacturing Extension Partnership. which,
Correct.
you can say what you want about government. They actually probably have the closest connection to the metal fabricating community in the U.S., I
Yes.
think, in terms of offering guidance and actual services and
Job connections.
Yeah, well,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep.
So one of the Illinois branches of that would be that IMEC. Did you meet your partners through them, or did you meet your partners just by reaching out looking for services?
The partners, the partners that we have now, 2 of them, one of them we inherited, but we've vastly expanded what we do with him. The second, that partner introduced us to, and the
Oh,
third,
nice.
I'm going to meet on Thursday, actually, who is an introduction through an engineer whom we work with often.
Oh, that's awesome.
So.
Having grown up in an engineering household, if you will, I mean, is this current stage of your life anything? Does it resemble what your dad was doing in any way?
My dad did top secret electrical engineering for IBM, so no.
Oh, so no, no.
No.
Wow.
Had the mind, but not. He made nothing. He worked very much on software. He worked first on some of the first radar installs on aircraft during the Korean War in Japan. Then he went to IBM and worked on really like skunk works type of stuff.
Yeah.
In the foothills of the Adirondacks in upstate New York, where the IBM installation was like tucked into a hillside.
Was that near Rochester, or was that somewhere?
No,
it was
Binghamton.
Binghamton. That's right. Okay.
Binghamton. And then he went on to form a company with some of his IBM colleagues to do one of the first programs that did circuit board design. So companies could buy their software package and use it for creating their own circuit boards.
Wow. So when you bought your company, what were some of the challenges that awaited you?
Numerous challenges.
But it seems like there was a lot of capabilities offered to produce those lighting fixtures. So at least there was some manufacturing muscle there for you.
We bought a very nice company. It had been founded by a gentleman who, at some point prior to us purchasing it, had kind of handed it over to his 2 daughters to run. And so, technically we kind of bought it from the 3 of them, but the daughters were very much running the shop at the time. And for them, it was sort of a steady lifestyle. They weren't interested in growing. They weren't interested in doing the things they weren't already doing. And so when we came in, one of the first challenges was to try to find what are our opportunities for growth, right? And one of the significant opportunities for growth, and why we've been able to get out of lighting with the new customers that we are bringing in, is that, and I credit all of this to Lucy. Lucy's attitude is, if you're going to bring me a part, I'm going to say yes. And so she's the one who's been going out and finding partners for us, other vendors. A lot of times the former owners who I'm not disparaging them, they were running the business they wanted, and we want a different business. So, but, if there was a tool we needed or just a small operation that required a little thought, they'd say, oh, maybe we'll pass on this. And that worked for them. But that was a big challenge of really building up the network that we have of vendors and partners and things of that nature. I think the biggest challenge at the time was moving the shop. It was a harrowing experience in many ways. There is a lot that goes into
There's a lot of
picking
people
up
that do it.
all this
Like, I
machinery.
mean, there's a lot of people that lease buildings. They don't think twice about moving. To me, I agree with you. Just coming from a residential perspective, I can't imagine moving machines.
I mean, how many machines did you have to move in total?
Well, the laser was a big one.
Yes.
I mean, we had to move, to a laser, a strip it, a very big brake, some other smaller brakes, and then all the ancillary equipment and storage and tooling.
And all of our
Finding,
inventory, all of our
properly level-
shelving was a big
Yeah,
deal. You
yeah.
wouldn't think,
Yeah.
but it was.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Properly leveled pads for the machines.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge
And the electrical build out that was required to,
Oh, yeah.
was significant.
Yeah, it took about a year because we
Oh.
couldn't get the what was it called? There was a
Right. So there had to be a power upgrade, and this was kind of end of COVID, and so the electrical supply chain during and at the end of COVID was horrible.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the switch gear
Oh, wow.
that we had to order,
yeah.
which was a big, huge piece of equipment, took 8 months
No
months
kidding.
longer than it was supposed
Well,
to.
we were doing stories about people who were waiting 18 months
Yes. Yeah.
for control units. And
Correct.
A lot of,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
crazy
yeah.
thing.
The building that they owned and housed this business in, this operation, was really huge. It had been a coffin factory,
Oh,
and it even
Where was
is
it?
still on Levitt near Grand.
Okay.
And it even still, originally, it had horses inside on the ground floor, hooked up and walking around in a circle to turn the machinery.
did you keep
and
those?
We did not come
No.
in time to see the horses.
Oh, man.
But it was a huge facility. It was way too big, and it was one of the problems when you have a space that's too big for your operation is you start to, I mean, unless you're very disciplined, you don't move things around to keep them really properly organized unless
you bleed into the corners.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there was a complete reorganization from one location to our new location, and what we have now is a sensible flow to the work and the machinery and the equipment and the tooling and the parts as they go around and then out the shop. So it plus we also have light and ventilation, and proper heat, and
All
it's really
pluses.
it's been a big upgrade, and of course everyone is much happier working there.
But to the point about it being harrowing, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And if we would move again, it would be probably, I would knock on wood, a much less stressful situation. But we were about, a year and a half into owning the business. I didn't even know what all the equipment was at the time. And so just with the electrical upgrade, I mean, there was a moment where we'd already signed the lease, we were ready to go, and then we realized, oh, we actually might not be able to get the big press brake into the new shop. Well, then what are we going to do? So there was a lot of those kinds of things that came up, and Lucy just was not stressed about any of it. She really outsourced that to me. I took it on very well. I did a great job being stressed about all of it. But we got through it in the end. I mean, the day, sort of our final, we broke the elevator moving out of there. So that
Excellent.
was a whole issue to deal with.
Okay.
It was broken over. We cut the electrical to
We
it.
further
We didn't
broke
break it. We cut the electrical to it, but then
You
we
worsened it.
couldn't figure out how to get electricity back to it. We when the forklift was pulling, I think, the laser out, one of the big pieces of equipment, when it was being pulled out, sunk into the ground. So then,
And that's because the whole thing had originally had a dirt floor,
yeah,
right? As many buildings did at that time,
Sure.
especially ones with horses.
Yes.
So the floor that had been poured post the laser being put in, because it had broken when they put the laser in, it broke again on the way out.
Oh,
So-
no.
so then we had to get
Fix
everything
that.
out sort of around this hole in the ground.
Mhm.
And then we had to fill the hole in the ground. Oh, the doors broke. The doors broke amidst the move. So then we had to like hand wind the doors to get them up and down as we were moving. I mean, it was just like so much. And she was up at the new shop vacuuming away on her robo vacuum thing. Like, Liz, this is going great.
Sorry, that's not that funny. It is
Wait.
kind
It's
of.
true.
At
It's
what
true.
point? I mean, how many times did one or both of you think this was a mistake, or did you?
No, we didn't think it was a
No.
mistake. It was just hard. I mean, moving's hard, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really hard when things weigh a couple of
Yeah.
tons.
Yeah.
And take
Or
a
10.
lot of electricity. I think is just, it's just a process,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we had to get through it. But I think there is no regret whatsoever,
No.
and we never. It's the yawning gap between the two facilities.
Yeah.
I mean, we love where we are right now.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be there.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you needed to address in terms of the transition from previous ownership to your ownership and wanting to kind of chart a new direction, whether it might be the addition of the part-time salesperson? Seems like that's kind of a natural evolution. Did you have information technology infrastructure to kind of allow you to make good decisions? Was that there previously? Anything else along those lines?
I think the most important thing that we brought and still bring to this business is the sense of teamwork that we have instilled in our employees, and that we are very much part of the team.
I noticed you listed all their names on the kind of the about page, and that seems to be very much a company ethos.
Correct.
Exemplifying that.
We're not just giving orders. We're out on the floor, managing the flow of work, doing the work, thinking about how to do the work better, asking questions of our employees,
Yeah.
because a number of them are extremely knowledgeable, and just, making it clear that this is a team effort all the time. That's
cool.
That was the most important thing we changed, I think.
So you had some carryover from the previous ownership in terms of employees?
3.
Okay.
Yeah. Our shop foreman, our lead former, and I don't even know
Well, and Isaiah.
Isaiah's title. We just call him
Shop
Isaiah.
our
Is
shop
that his
assist, our shop apprentice. That's
Yes.
what he is.
Nice.
Yeah. That when you're leaning on everyone to kind of contribute, do you think of creating a culture at that point, or is that just kind of the way you're doing business, and as a result the culture kind of comes?
I think we talk about and think about the culture we want all the time. Yeah, I think we're very proactive about that, and the tone we want to set and the way that we want
Yeah.
to
Sounds like it.
the way that we want to, I think I said this before, but it bears repeating, it's like show up for work. We've been in shops where we've heard people speak to each other in ways that we just don't accept, right? We set the tone for that, and we don't really permit folks to speak to each other in ways that are disrespectful. And I think even just that small change of like what kind of language do we use to engage with one another makes a big difference. And I know from talking to the guys that they feel that difference, and they feel the level of respect that we show. And so then they bring that as well. And I think it makes a very collaborative environment. But we think about it and we talk about it all the time, and we talk about it with each other, and try to make it a conscious point. And I will say that for some of the guys that work with us, that has not always been their experience in the workforce of kind of making or of being somewhere where this sense of mutual respect is a value. And so it's very important to us.
How do you think that sets you up for the future in terms of, bringing on new employees and expanding your business? I mean, that deep sense of proper and healthy company culture.
I think it allows our employees to tell us when we're about to make a mistake. We get that. We hear it. We don't always agree. It's our company. We sometimes make different decisions. But I would say that because this culture, this attitude is genuine, right? People can tell if you're just giving lip service to these ideas or if you're actually, living them out. And I think our team knows that we're very genuine. And, Juan, who is our shop foreman, has many times said, Liz, I don't think that's a good idea. Here's why. And it's been helpful.
Not always correct?
Not always correct. But then I have the opportunity to tell him how I see something from my perspective, and then he's better and I'm better, and then the company is better situated. And I know that is not something he's always felt comfortable doing. So I think particularly for me, being new to the industry, it would be a huge mistake for me to show up acting like, yeah, listen to me, I know what I'm doing. I don't, and I'll freely admit it, and I think it makes us better for it. And Juan in particular is such a fun person to work with because his brain is so different than mine. He's always been in manufacturing. He is just so knowledgeable that to not tap into that would be folly on our part.
I noticed from your bio, your graduate work at Loyola was very much attuned to social justice and things like that. How has that informed the way you're running your company?
I think in these ways that we've been talking about how we, are conscious about the culture we're creating and how we want to be members of our community.
Right.
I think it's in many ways, I got the master's I got, which was a master's in social justice and community development from Loyola. In many ways, I got that master's, I think, because of who I am. And so it reinforced ideas for me about how to be, but also I was attracted to it because, I'd like to live in this world of dignity and mutual respect.
Yeah.
And I think there's ways to do that in all industries and many forms.
Are you excited to do that in the private sector?
I am.
Kind of
it's a bit of an experiment.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is different in talking to other shop owners, I could be wrong about this, but I think is different, is that we're both single mothers. And because of that, work has to have a certain flexibility for us. And Lucy has a daughter. I have 4 kids, but 2 of them are sons. And one of the things that I think about is if we really want this idea of equality, right, then we have to permit men to show up and work as fathers in the same way that we expect women to show up and work as mothers. And so we try to be very family oriented as well. And I will tell you, I won't out him, but one of the guys that works for us, who's a father, he took off a day of work to take his son to kindergarten for the first time. And that
Oh.
isn't something that historically he had done with his other children.
Hmm.
But I think, again, because of the way we show up, because we are willing to, make adjustments and be flexible so that the folks we work with can show up as caregivers for their family, is also something that's a little bit different in our shop. And I know that it's valued.
Mhm.
People's schedules, we don't work a strict 6 to 2 schedule. There's a little bit of modification there, based on caregiving responsibilities, be that for a wife or a relative. And I think we really value that. And I think that our people value that as well.
Very cool.
Yeah. What's it like manufacturing in Chicago?
I mean, we're in the center. There's so many people around us doing so many things. Chicago's more expensive to do it in, that's for sure, but we have a heck of a great workforce to pull from. And we're centrally located, and we have so many partners that we can collaborate with, and so many people to reach out to just right here in Chicagoland. So
Yeah,
we love it.
Going back to this little, I guess, cooperative that you've been building purposefully, how do you feel like that ethos is really the way to go for a small business in this sector? Why do you think that?
Well, each one of these of our little team or co-op, we all have our own specialty, and they're real specialties, and they require heavy equipment that's specialized.
Right.
And so instead of me trying to figure out how I can, buy a stamping machine to do something, I can go to someone who has a ton of expertise and the equipment to do it, and can advise me on design changes that might be beneficial to the client. And it's just like bringing another teammate onto a team who is, a spectacular catcher, and I get to be the shortstop. So it's just building a team, and that uses and where the aggregate is greater than the whole.
Right.
I mean, sorry, than the sum of its parts.
No, and you don't have to buy stamping dies.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And it gives us access to bigger and broader customers, which is really the only, no, it's not the only way, but it's the direction that we want to go is higher volume, higher quantities. And so to
More
get that,
opportunity.
we need to be able to do more. And by partnering with folks, we can.
Right, and the capital investment burden is not so great on you then, right? So it's interesting because we've talked with a number of fabricators on this podcast and in articles that we do who find their niche, and they'll go for very different types of customers, super high volume, very low volume, low volume, high mix type of thing. Do you feel like at this point you're averse to anything, or is it just, hey, bring it on and we'll do it?
I think we're like, hey, bring it on. I think where we seem to be doing best in terms of the new customers that we're bringing in as FosterWorks is with newer and startup companies. So the water heaters are a good example, but we have a few examples of that because we're willing to prototype. We're willing to make the very small quantities for you.
Yeah.
But then I think we're also able to maintain pretty competitive pricing once you get to production and have higher volume. And so because we're able to do both of those, we seem to be having a lot of luck with folks who are either a new business entirely or, bringing a new product to market that is going to need some work. And then again, credit to our shop foreman who just absolutely loves to play with things and make new parts. And so he and Lucy I think one of the things that uh, makes us a good partner for this type of customer or client, if you were, is that we're very collaborative with them as well, right? And so if we see something that we think we can do it better, make it cheaper, offer an opinion, we're happy to do so. We don't kind of hold anything back. We really view our customers as well as our partners. So that sort of collaboration, that culture, it shows up in kind of in all of those ways. One of the things we think about is like we want a triple win. We want to take on parts and jobs that are going to be a win for the business, right? We do want to make money on them. That goes without saying. They're going to be a win for our employees. Yes, maybe they're going to be a stretch, but we don't want to stretch so people so far that they're stressed, right? So we'll take things outside of our capabilities, but we're also mindful about how often we do that and how much we take on. So there's sort of a plotting and planning to that. And then we want it to be a win for our customer. We want to actually be able to provide the good product. And so that's kind of the lens through which we are looking at new work is, can we hit this trifecta?
How do you handle entry of like new jobs onto the shop floor? Is there a kind of a meeting at the beginning of the shift? Is there a visual kind of communication board, router kind of have everything necessary to get the job done?
We have like paper routers, and obviously can also look at digital files to help. But by and large, it's pretty much just good old prints. Everyone in the shop is used to looking at a print, and we could just still look at a print and say, "Oh, yep, okay, that's what I got to do," and it gets done for the most part.
Yeah. Are you getting your manufacturing fix still? I mean, for someone who took welding classes, you're still hands?
Every day.
Still.
Love it every day.
So
And I will often...
It sounds like you're involved as well.
Yeah, I will often do something on the floor on a daily basis.
Just run the laser or run different machines?
Yeah, I do a fair amount of forming. I'll hop on and form something to get it moving along. Insert hardware, run the laser, run the strip it, any of it.
So there's an element of fun there for you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Just love it.
From a design standpoint, just as I guess speaking as to an engineer, I'm interested in like what are you able to do as a small business in terms of just collaborating with customers in terms of optimizing designs for things that they're bringing to you? Is that something that you particularly enjoy as well, or is that...
We do, and one of the we have in particular two people in our shop who are very good at doing that.
Yeah.
And who can easily assess a new part and say, that the bend sequence that we need to do for this isn't really effective, but like expeditious. So if we could bend this slightly a little bit of a different way, then we could wrap it up quickly. Material suggestions are something that that are often material swap outs, or are often something that we suggest, just because people aren't. Not all clients are inherently well informed about what the different, when you get to forming, what the different qualities of the types of metals are.
Yeah.
And certainly also some of them even need education on finishing, like why you may want to use a galvanized material from the start rather than, I've still have people asking me to galvanize things at the end occasionally after it's been worked. I'm like, we could just really start with galvanized material and that would be okay. So yeah, we actually, again, as Liz was just saying, for me and Juan and for our lead former Pedro, that's one of our favorite things to do, is to go, wait, how are you going to make this? If they just did this, like, angled it, at 75 instead of 90, we could do it. Or anyway, so that's the fun. That's the fun. Really, that's the real fun every day.
Do you so you're in metal fabricating now, and I'm sure you have a social circle. Do people understand what y'all do for a living? And how long does it take you to describe what you do till they understand
It's
it?
really best to just have them come over to the shop, give them a tour, and then go have a beer at Half Acre, which has its big brewery
Right.
Yes.
location
Across
right
the
next to it.
street,
Yeah.
So what questions do you have now that you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a look around and let me know.
Yeah. I ask that question because I often think sometimes the nature of the industry kind of gets in the way of people kind of wanting to explore it and knowing about it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it provides such an opportunity for people with all kind of skills to come forward and actually contribute. You know what I mean? You're creating. There's a tangible, and I've heard this numerous times, there's a tangible result of your efforts for the day. And it might be more than one. It's a very fulfilling, and I guess I'll ask you that. Are you finding fulfillment in your new endeavor?
Part of what I find very fulfilling about it is this continuous learning journey that I am on,
Mhm.
because I started with, when I say literally nothing, I really would like to emphasize that point. I really didn't know anything at all. I mean,
You
that's
worked
not
at
true.
Lehman
Inventory
Brothers.
management. I
Oh,
knew
you worked at
about
Lehman Brothers.
inventory. That was what I knew. And but in terms of like how to run a shop and just how things get made, it's been very fun. It's very satisfying. I'm not out on the floor as much as Lucy is, but I have surprised myself, quite frankly, with the the limited amount I do. I would just like to be very honest. I'm not out on the floor a lot. I could not uh I couldn't set up a forming machine, but um I've learned to run the laser. I've just learned so much about the actual, like, how to make things, um which maybe is not coming across. I'm maybe not articulating that well, but I assure you I've learned a
Yeah.
lot.
But I think I think people hear you, and what I hear is there's opportunity for people with all kind of skill sets. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I mean, if anything, we probably see the opposite, where people have that expertise in forming, but when it comes to the front office type stuff,
Mhm.
And they try desperately to understand accounting.
and it's
Yeah.
challenging. It's challenging, and they try to wear multiple hats, and that's the stuff that kills them. They don't want, for the most
Yeah.
part, they got into the business to do the creating stuff, not the administrative stuff. So, and then the flip side of that is, I think those small experiences, as they may be for you, actually probably make you a better administrator, operations,
Absolutely.
financial for the services you offer. So, that's that seems to be kind of the secret for a lot of shops, is all this cross training and just exposure and being able to step in while someone's not available. And it's really I don't want to call it fun, but it's definitely not boring.
It's not boring. It is fun. And that's actually why Lucy and I thought that we would be well suited to go into this endeavor together, because she was and still is like, I can make things. I've got this. And I was and still am like, I can run a business. I can manage a lot of the operational side of things. I have experience in HR and IT, and, as you do with small businesses. And so together we have nice complements for each other, and I'm bringing her into my areas of expertise. And by being out on the floor, she's bringing me into areas of her expertise. And so I would say, with our business specifically, my growth curve has been more significant. There's been a lot more that I've had to learn, but it's fun. It's satisfying. And to the point that you made about there's opportunities for people with all kinds of expertise. We actually just hired a new laser operator who is a young woman who had been in IT. She'd been in IT for school and just didn't have that satisfaction for her. She's like, how many times can I fix a Chromebook? It's not really fun. And so she decided to go. She went and got a
welding
A
certificate.
welding
Went
certificate.
to Chicago Women in the Trades.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And went through their program, and then got referred to us by a friend of Liz's, and we interviewed her and said, we don't have exactly a welding job, but we have a manufacturing job, and she is doing great. And
Yeah.
she's also our first woman on the shop floor, which we're thrilled about. I mean, aside from us, but we're really happy about that. We are a certified WBE and a certified WASB, woman-owned small business. So, that's we have a really diverse workforce. Also, things that are very important to us. So it's really great to see her come and succeed and grow and enjoy and feel it seems happy with the transition that she has made from IT to manufacturing.
Well, you can speak to how it came from accounting, and and you came from the financial sector, and you're all kind of moving into this confluence of a new business and as an adventure, almost as much as anything, right? Because what do you feel like a customer gains by dealing with a small shop with your level of flexibility and mobility? I mean, what does that do for them, and what does it do for your collaboration?
Well, I think one of the things that has so far and will continue to really work well for us is the very high degree of communication that we have with our clients from the beginning all the way through to shipping and follow-up and correcting invoices or counts or anything. Like, we across the board from soup to nuts are very, we write in full sentences. We're highly communicative. We are
Bless you.
You're talking our language now. Please tell us more.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's really not lost on our clients, and we are really service oriented in that way. And there are all kinds of proliferating platforms for instant quotes and instant manufacturing, and we have tried to use them and also tried to work within them. And there's the lack of communication and how much it trips up getting something made and made properly the first time can't be underestimated. So we're going to, from the very beginning, when you first reach out to us with as an existing client with a new part or a revision or a question, or can we make it this way instead, to new clients coming in with, we're trying to make this water heater and we haven't found anyone in our neck of the woods to make it. Would you be able to do it? What would your processes be? How would you go about it? We're going to be highly communicative and flexible and ready to help a client make their product effectively. Sometimes that's going to go away from us when it gets to big production numbers, because we're not the biggest shop and we don't have a fiber laser like everyone else in the world seems to now. But we're, a diverse supplier operating in the United States. We're highly communicative. We have a lot of capabilities. The capabilities that we don't have, we have fabulous partners to work with in order to effectuate a vision on the part of a client. And so that's what we feel we offer.
Yeah, those relationships are so important.
I was going to say, and that's why sales falls under Lucy's purview and not mine.
Okay.
Because she articulated that so well.
But then you just oversee the results, right?
I wanted to ask this question because I also do research of our guests who visit us.
Always.
Lucy, your background, you have an anthropology undergrad as well as a master's.
Correct.
And so I was thinking I had to actually look up to make sure what exactly anthropology was. But when the study of cultures. Thank you for laughing at that, Gareth. But do you feel in your role now, how important is manufacturing to a culture in terms of like a civilization? And that's a big question, but I mean, particularly from U.S., because one of the things that we're in the midst of is the whole reshoring movement. And kind of the backdrop of that is there really an anti-globalization thing happening? And I think those tentacles are too deep to really totally not happen. But how important is manufacturing for a country, do you think?
Vital. I mean, and we bought this business for many reasons, but a couple of them included reshoring, being a woman-owned business in a non-diverse field,
Yes.
historically still not diverse field, and wanting to be part of the manufacturing ecosystem, certainly in the Midwest, but in this country, it's vital. I mean, we all know it's vital. It's still, we were just talking about this on the way over, it's people still, and it goes to your question of, like, when you tell your friends what you do they really understand what you do?
Right,
And the answer
right.
is no.
Yeah.
Very few of them do, because I just had a really dear friend of mine who had not seen the shop yet walk in and go, wow, I had no idea it was this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, no, and we need all of this to make this thing that I then showed her. And I think that it's just vital to our culture. Culture is vital to manufacturing. They're inseparable, and it's such a Liz highlighted this, that it's really so satisfying to make things. And in metal, we make things that last,
Right.
that are in so many different industries. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what I think keeps us wanting to be a job shop or a contract manufacturer too, because when we looked at the mattress factory, we walked out and we were both like, wow, that's kind of a really interesting business. But I turned to Liz and I said, I'm going to get bored. Even though you made different size mattresses for the prisons and the
College dorms,
college
yeah.
dorms, true. It still was like, you were still operating within a pretty narrow range of efficiencies and expertise. And here we're starting to gain a reputation as someplace where people can take their part and not run it through an online platform and get the assistance that they need to help bring it to fruition and make it a part that is efficient and functional and appropriately priced, unless you want to take it someplace a whole lot cheaper, which we understand is part of the process. But if we, on the small to medium sized production runs, the non-hundreds of thousands run, that's where we want to live.
Yeah. No, it's a great opportunity. It's a great industry, and hopefully you have continued success.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us, Liz and Lucy. Where can they find out more about FosterWorks?
FosterWorks.org.
Okay. I'm glad I remembered to ask that. Thank you, Landtech, for sponsoring this episode. You have a winning pair of customers here. Or I guess one customer, but two people who are here on the couch. If you have any complaints, criticisms, comments, send it to podcast@fmamfg.org. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And I think that's it, right? Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us, and have a good day.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Kulpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for laughing at that, Gareth.